So Leopoldo today will be presenting us his plenary World Organization for Animal Health, Animal Welfare Commitment from Science to Standards. So Leo, please, you can share your screen and welcome to this session.
Perfect. No.
We don't see your full screen.
Yeah. Voila. That's good.
Yes.
Perfect. You hear me well also?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Tamara, and thank you very much for the organizers for inviting me to participate and present in this workshop. Very happy to try to also share my experience on how translate science also into standards and in a way also in national animal welfare regulations, especially in our members from WOAH. I don't know really if the audience also has the knowledge of the audience about our organization. Then I will start mention it that we are the global authority on animal health, and we were founded in 1924. As you can see in the slide, also we are celebrating our 100th anniversary. Then we are quite proud to achieve 100 years old. In May 2003, we adopted the common name of World Organization for Animal Health. As probably most of you know our organization in the past as OAI, or which is the acronym for Office International des Épizooties. And we are focused mainly on transparently disseminating information on animal disease, improving animal health and welfare at global level, and then try to build a safer, healthier, and more sustainable world. In terms of animal welfare, relatively the activities on this area are new, if we can say, for the organization. There are two main milestones. The first one is in 2002, where animal welfare was identified by our members as a strategic priority. And then we received the mandate of our members, because that's the organization works. We are today 183 members, and they are the ones that are guiding what is the work that we should conduct. Then that everything started in 2001 with the mandate given to the organizations to start developing animal welfare recommendations. Another important milestone was in 2017, during the global conference on animal welfare in Guadalajara in Mexico. We discussed the global animal welfare strategy of WOAH, and in 2017 was adopted during the general session. And the vision of this strategy, which is quite in line with all the current discussion regarding One Health and Welfare. It's a world where the welfare of animals is respected, promoted, and advanced in a ways that complement and pursue animal health, human well-being, and socioeconomic development and environmental sustainability. Then it's a quite broad and take into account a lot of components. The strategy have four main pillars, and some of them are more related to the main topic of this workshop, which is how we translate the science on standards or regulation or recommendations. The four pillars of this strategy are the development of animal welfare standards. Standards are the core activity since 100 years of our organization. capacity building and education activities, the implementation of animal welfare standards and policy. Here it is one of the more challenging aspects of our organization, specifically in this area, and the communication with governments, organizations, and the public. Therefore, all these pillars have some different activities that aimed to support the implementation of the strategy, and at the end support the implementation of the terrestrial and animal code and the aquatic animal health code, which are where our standards are published. I will start with the core one, the main one, which is the development of animal welfare standards. Why we are doing standards? This is mainly, as I explained you, there is a historic role of WOAH, or in the past OAH, in protecting animal health. And animal health is considered a key component on welfare. Also, as I mentioned already, members gave the mandate to take the lead internationally on the development of animal welfare standards. But also, we need to be sure that the texts that we are developing are applicable to all our members, because they have a very broad, diverse socioeconomic, agroecological, cultural, and religious context. Also, our standards are guiding principle recommendations, but are not a piece of regulation. This is not like, for example, the European Union, where some regulations are compulsory or immediately included into the regulatory framework of the member state of the European Union. Here, we are expecting that our members take our standards to develop their own national animal welfare regulation. Then it's why we are doing this. It's as I said, and this is in relation with the mission of the global animal welfare strategy, is that we need to support the people's livelihood and the agriculture output, as there is millions of people that are relying on this activity. Today, we have 14 animal welfare chapters that have been published in the Terrestrial Animal Health Code, and also 4 chapters in the Aquatic Animal Health Code. But how we develop our standard and how science is involved in this process. I have to say also that this is it's a quite a transparent and democratic process, and it started first with a request. Could be a request, it could be a question from our delegates, our international organization with which have agreements, and also after a recommendation from our global conference. That is the starting point. Then that subject is discussed in the specialist commission of our organization. The specialist commission are elected members proposed by the different member countries of WOAH. And in the case of the terrestrial standards are the Terrestrial Animal Health Code Commission. And then they discuss broadly the topic, but normally they request to global expert to meet and discuss more in detail what is going to be a first attempt to develop a standard. For example, the text that was recently adopted during the last general session, the chapter 7.5 of the code, which is the animal welfare during slaughter. Then those global experts are as we know, the WOAH ADO groups. WOAH ADO groups, it's a group of experts that is convened as the initiative of our Director General to examine specific scientific and technical issues as defined in the terms of reference of the different group. the members can come from the academia, government, private sector. Normally, government also because they have experience in that area. Private sector, normally we have experts that also work in some research center that have linkage with the topic. And also we are also having a proposal of experts that come from the animal welfare, animal protection sector organizations. Today, more than 100 experts have participated in developing the WOAH animal welfare standards. If you are right to see that the pictures in this group have been participating, notable science like Donald Broom, also Professor Javier Manteca, and others. The idea that we try to have in these other groups is to try to represent the 5 WOAH regions to have the possibility to capture the specificities of each of the region for the different topics that we are covering. Today, and because of that, I cannot participate the full workshop is because we have now yesterday, today, and tomorrow the other group that is reviewing the WOAH chapters on animal welfare and transport, the 3 chapters, the one on sea, land, and air transport. Then those global experts are the ones that started the process with a first draft or a first revision of our chapters. And that chapter goes again to the specialist commission and then followed. It's in the slide, it's mentioned 2 cycles, but that could be more, and normally it's more than 2 cycles of comments. Comments from who? From the member countries, the delegates, but the delegate also conduct a similar process that we do at WOAH, that we ask them to collect comments from the main stakeholders in their own country. That's mean the animal protection organization, producers organizations, and other stakeholders that are interested in this specific chapter. Then once this chapter is mature and the specialist commission, in this case the Code Commission, think that is ready, the chapter is proposed for adoption to the World Assembly of Delegates, which is the meeting of all our members that happens in May each year. Then it was already just a few weeks ago, and as I mentioned, where we adopted the revised chapter 7.5 on the animal welfare during slaughter. And then if the chapter is adopted, it's become a WOAH international standard and published in the Terrestrial or Aquatic Code. Then there is an important communication with members, and it's important that all those communications are published in the website through the Specialist Commission report and also the report of the Code Commission. What I would like to mention that the way of developing our standard have evolving. In the past, we were quite focused on resource and management based measures, and today we are moving to a more outcome-based way to develop our standards, and we are focused on the response of the animal, the effects of the animal. That means mainly using animal-based measures. Then today, all our chapters that are published in the code, mainly the revised one, are also indicate a series of animal-based measures that can be used for the assessment of the or the implementation of the standards that are published. Then, as I already mentioned to you, we have 14 chapters published in the Terrestrial Code that goes from introductory chapter through the transport, which is the one that I mentioned that we are developing a revision process, and we have the meeting of this other group with us today here at the WOAH headquarters. This slaughter, killing for disease control, which is also under revision. The stray dog population control that changed the name to dog population management. And the use of animals in research and education, and a series of chapters on a production system, on beef cattle, broilers, dairy cattle, and also we have an important one on the welfare of working equids, and finally the more recently adopted in terms of a new topic is the killing for reptiles for the skin, meats, and other products. In the Aquatic Code, there is less chapters, and also they're going to follow an important review, and that's also where science came into this process. The aquatic area of WOAH develop a global also aquatic animal health strategy, and one of the components of that strategy is the revision of the science that is supporting these animal welfare chapters. Then it's going to be a consultant that is going to look for the current chapters and try to find the gaps with the current knowledge on these three areas, mainly the transport, the stunning and killing, and the killing for disease control purpose, always on farm fish. As I already told you, we have developing a process of review the standards using our other groups, and also sometimes I collaborate in centers on animal welfare, which I'm going to talk later. As I mentioned, we just adopted, and was a long process of discussion and revision of the chapter 7.5, animal welfare during slaughter, which was adopted last general session recently in May. We are submitting chapters for comments, as you remember of this chart. We are in the second cycle of the commenting process of the chapter 7.1, which is the introductory chapter for the recommendation on animal welfare. And here it's interesting because we are proposing to include the concept of the phytodomain, which was not currently today in the chapter, and also be more explicit on what WOAH means when we talk about animal-based measures and other measurables like resource and management-based measures. We also have in the process of revision the killing of animals for disease control purpose. Probably they are going to change name, and also we are trying to include some method that they're still not included in the current chapter, and try to also include as much as possible animals-based measures to the assess of the welfare of the animals that will be submitted to these procedures. Already mentioned that this week we are reviewing the transport of animal by sea and by land. And also we have also a quite important relation with the International Air Transport Association, and we have a chapter on transport of animals by air. We are trying to see if we are going to have only one chapter, or at least a revision of the chapters on by land and by sea, and try to have one single chapter covering just transport of animals. There are other activities or pillars of our strategy that also support our work. and also this idea that we need to reinforce the communication and also integrate other, for example, other science or other areas of the science in the development of our standards. And this pillar is on the communication with governments, organization, and the public, where we have an important activity. We call it the Animal Welfare Global Forum, with the idea to bring together in a meeting the animal welfare research community, the global animal welfare movements, and the global animal source food sector to discuss openly some topics on animal welfare. We started with this activity in 2018 with some general topic like the implementation. And for example, in the second one on animal transport, there was a lot of discussion that there was a need to review the chapters, and that was the trigger to start this revision process that we are involved now. But also in all other forums, we have been also the inclusion of the topic that we need to also include some other areas of science, like for example economics, and because of that we did in 2022 a specific forum on animal welfare economics. We had an interesting one on animal welfare and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and there is an interesting publication on that because we did it together with the Swedish Agriculture University, which is also a collaborating center on animal welfare for WOAH. Then it's something that we are using also to try to see if there is a need of update our standards. The last one that we developed was in October last year, and it was about the development of national animal welfare legislation. This is quite important because we are talking about the science behind the standards, but also I mentioned that our members are so diverse. Then for developing a regulatory framework in those countries, also we need to consider that there are different reality and also different legal system that make them to develop or include the animal welfare standards that we develop in a different way. Then this forum came from the discussion that good national veterinary legislation, it's quite important to implement animal welfare standards. And also it's important to consider other chapters that are included into the code. There is mentioned sections 3 and 7 of the code, which is the specific chapter on veterinary legislation. And also we'll discuss a lot about technical issues relating how develop a regulation based in our standards to support the good governance and achieve also at the end good animal welfare. For example, the importance of the use of an agreed terminology when we talk about animal welfare, when we talk about conservation, when we talk about cruelty. Also, the possibility to use other alternatives to support the implementation of the standards, like bilateral or multilateral instance. Probably, I don't know if you are aware that some countries have specific bilateral agreements that include animal welfare in the agreement that they are signed. The social license also was discussed as a way to ensure the implementation, the importance of include the economical analysis. As I mentioned, we discussed that in a previous also forum, the importance of have a strong economic analysis to identify the cost of benefits, both the private and the social ones, because not necessarily the benefits or the cost are evident in an economical analysis. Also, the important to establish different speed I already mentioned, and I mentioned once again, the variety of members and the reality of those members are quite different. Then some of them, they are just starting to develop their own regulation. Some of them are quite advanced, like the European Union member countries. Then there's a need to allow progressivity in terms of their own regulatory framework. The need of collaborative efforts with involving the different stakeholders, the industry, the NGOs, even the civil society. And also there is a component of use another regulation that can support. Here I mentioned the ISO technical specification 34700, which is not a full ISO certification scheme, but a technical specification to guide organizations to implement animal welfare measures or plans based on the WOAH codes. And also we have some in-house tools that can help members to develop their own regulation, like the Veterinary Legislation Support Program of WOAH. Another pillar that's important is how we also disseminate the knowledge that we have. We have in developing a training portal, and also we are populating that training portal, developing e-learning models that are going to be available for the public and also for our main clients, which is the veterinary authority of our members. We're starting with the chapter 714, the last one, killing of reptile for skin, meats, and other products. We hope that we are going to publish that in the website at the end of this year. We also have a labeling process that we can take material that's already available from organizations that we have collaboration to try to use that material and label it as WOAH material. We also train what we call our focal points, which are a staff of the veterinary authorities that support the delegate, which is a representative of the country to our organization in a specific topic. And here, for example, we have an important meeting we had in Brazil, where we invite the focal points to discuss the new developments on animal welfare in the region. One important aspect and tool we have in terms of capacity building and education is the Collaborating Center, which is a network with the purpose to provide scientific expertise and support our members to promote the international collaboration on animal health and welfare. And in the case of animal welfare, we have so far 4 collaborating centers. In Europe, we have a consortium between the Teramo Institute and the Swedish Agricultural University. In the Asia Pacific region, we have a quite big consortium that also involve the Ministries of Agriculture of New Zealand and Australia, plus some universities like the Queensland University, the Melbourne University, and also the Animal Behavior and Welfare Research Centers, also in Massey. In the Americas, we have also a consortium between the University of La República in Uruguay, the Institute of Bioscience, and also in the University Austral of Chile, where Tamara is a member, and also the UNAM in Mexico. And at the end, we have a collaborating center specifically dedicated to laboratory animal welfare, which is the ILAR in US. Then the idea also is to request the support of this collaborating center to help us in, for example, developing some specific aspect. I can mention that we have been working with the collaborating centers to develop some guiding documents regarding animal transport, for example, to develop a model of emergency plan or a model of checklist that members can use to also ensure the implementation of our welfare standards. And then going to the last pillar on the implementation, which probably is one of the more complicated one, as I mentioned, because the diversity of our members, we have been working on regional animal welfare strategies and platform. That means that we are requesting and supporting our members to develop their own strategic tools to implement the animal welfare measures that are in the code. Then that means that they identify their own regional priorities, they develop and structure their own governance body, and they need to develop an action plan to implement the activities that are in the strategy or in the platform. Today we have in the 5 WOAH regions different levels of advanced. I think that in Europe and Asia, Far East and Oceania are the regions where we have more movement in this area with a strategy, or a strategy that is in the process of be reviewing, or with a strategy that is under a new action plan, but there is others that we still try to support them and try to push them to be more active, like in Africa, Middle East and the Americas region. Also, in terms of the implementation, the WOAH have a specific project that started some years ago to develop a tool to know how our members are implementing the WOAH standards. This project is called the Observatory Project, and in terms of the animal welfare area, we developed recently a thematic study on animal transport by land and sea, taking the opportunity that we have been started the revision process of the standards on transport. And in a first phase, we launched a survey, a global survey, that is already finished, and we have some interesting results. And we are going to develop a second phase that will start this second semester to go more in deep on the responses that we had on the global survey. That's mean, for example, why members have more or less priorities on developing the regulation or implementing the standards on transport. What are the difficulties to implement the standards on transport? If they have a regulation, but they don't have the possibility to enforce the regulation, what will be the opportunities and the challenge for that, etc. I mentioned also the technical specification on from ISO as a good opportunity to implement WOAH standards. There are some examples that already implemented this technical specification at country level, like in US, for example, the USDA Marketing Service developed a full certification scheme for dairy cow based on this technical specification, and obviously based on the chapter on dairy cows from the code. Also, Argentina also is developing a similar scheme, but we would like more countries using this tool, as it could be also easy and also quite attractive for the private sector to use. And also, as I mentioned, with the Collaborating Center, we are developing some guiding documents for animal welfare during transport that will support the implementation of the standards. Finally, just a few words of the challenges that we have. I mentioned several times that there is a quite complex aspect, which is the scientific, ethical, cultural dimension that animal welfare have along our members. But it's essential to have a scientific base. However, for the adoption of the chapter, also we need to take into account other dimension or dimension that I already mentioned. Then there is a need, and also it is also a challenge to address animal welfare in a global basis, not just looking one region, one country, because the WOAH standards need to be relevant to all our members, not, as I said, to a group of country or a region. I will leave you with this document that we developed for the anniversary, which is Animal Welfare, a Vital Asset for a More Sustainable World. It's a vision paper that tries to see how we are going to work animal welfare in the future. It's in the 3 official languages, but here is the QR code to the English version of the document. Then I think that I will share the presentation, and the presentation will be shared with the participants. Therefore, that is from my side. Thank you very much. Merci and muchas gracias. And I'm so sorry that I will not participate in the rest of the session, which I would like to really, but I have to participate in my other group meeting. But I will be now open for any question and comments from the participant on the audience. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Leo. Thank you very much. We already have some questions for you. And the first one is this transport revision for land animals specifically, or also for aquatic animals in that chapter?
No, we are focusing in the Terrestrial Code, which is land, sea, and air transport. And I mentioned that for the case of the Aquatic Code, is going to be a revision which is planned under the Global Aquatic Animal Health Strategy that will start with a scientific revision of the current chapters and try to find gaps in the current chapters.
Here we have another question. How you would recommend to handle topics that are covered by many standards but that might not be detected by any resource management or animal-based indicators during an assessment, for example, due to specific situations like farm slaughtering or due to seasonal occurrence? Would you favor more education or more monitoring and control here?
Well, the first, it could be that we have an introductory chapter, and in that introductory chapter that are some general recommendations which can be applied to any activity that are involving animals. That is one part, but also in the specific chapter, there is also some general principles that can be used for aspects that are not specifically mentioned in the chapter. The question named slaughter. Yes, we have a lot of discussion with the other group regarding slaughter at farm level, but there are some guiding principles or general principles that are in that chapter that can be used in the in different settings, like on farm slaughter, but the main idea of the chapter is to regulate or to give recommendations for slaughter at slaughterhouse abattoirs. But as I said, there is indications in all the articles that also some basic principles that are included in that recommendations can be used in another kind of context.
Thank you, Leo. I have another question here. To what extent do you think these animal welfare guiding principles are being adopted by member countries?
It's an interesting question. Because of that, we are trying to develop more this kind of thematic studies under the observatory project. We don't have a clear idea on how or in what extent our standards are implemented. But in some areas, it could be easy. For example, in some of the preliminary results of this survey on animal transport, at least we receive 98 responses from our members, and from those ones, 70% they have a regulatory framework that regulated transport by sea and by land. The other question is, are those regulations being enforced? It's another topic, because they depends on the ability of the country to provide funding for that for enforcement, or to educate also the population and also the stakeholders that participate. But it's something that we are working on, and that is the objective of the observatory, because also we try to capture with the observatory project the problems that members can have in the development of the regulation and in the implementation, and it could be something that is wrong from our side, the way that we are doing our regulation, that impede the members to effectively implement the measures.
And I think that comes to this next question about the role of WOAH. Do you have any enforcement possibilities, or only monitoring role?
No, our basics tests don't allow us to intervene directly, but we can support a member if they request it formally, and that has been the case in some even crisis transport, for example. Try to put together, for example, both members that are in conflicting. We have a mediation process which is less complicated than, for example, a panel in the World Trade Organization. But that mediation process should be requested by both involved members, or sometimes we support some specific members. They have some difficulties to implement some specific standard, and if I remember well, the mainly are related to dog population management, because the linkage with the rabies control that have, and also a lot of crises due to transport, which are not necessarily related to animal welfare specifically during the transport, but some problems due to administrative issues related to, for example, certification. A vessel that arrived later and the certificate already it's out of date, and the country of destination reject the certificate, and then the problem started, and animal welfare problems can become more and more critical from that moment. Then in that situation, sometimes members request support from us, and we try to facilitate the dialogue between the members that are involved.
Thank you. And I'm going to read the next question. the major challenges that are faced in developing economies are clear, but what could be done to overcome this without compromising human welfare, finance, or food security?
I think what I mentioned, that we need to be quite attentive in how we develop our regulation, and because of that we are shifting from the old way to just include resource or management-based measures to animal-based measures, which are not easy to assess, but also give the opportunity for members to develop their own production system and to show that the results are the same with different kind of resources or management. Then thinking or looking to the animals, and that we are trying to do now. Also trying to also developing the support for assessment in terms of the animal-based measure that we are requesting to be taken into consideration. And also, as I include in my presentation, all the training possibilities that we are trying to develop in terms of online training.
Thank you, Leo. Here another question. Animal transport, live exports are such a hot and negative animal welfare topic, and they are in the news a lot. Does WOAH ever issue public statements or direct advice, or does it have a more background role that talks to governments? And if you can comment on the regional nuances and differences when it comes to, for example, the USA versus Asia or versus the European Union, there must be differences that are almost impossible to manage.
Well, if I understood correctly, we are always trying to add with our social medias or our tools in the website, trying to highlight the importance of implement animal welfare in different areas. Transport is one of them. I not have exactly the information here, but we have been developing some information for the general public also, and for the stakeholders that we have contact directly regarding the implementation and the need of the implementation of the standards. As I say, we cannot, we don't have an enforcement role. We cannot go to the country to force them to develop their own regulation. It's something that they need to do by themselves. But we have a lot of tools that we have been developing that we put and we offer to our members to facilitate that implementation. Also, as I mentioned, as one of the challenges, the diversity of realities is something that we try to manage in the day-to-day work, especially when we put for adoption some chapters. It's quite difficult to arrive to a consensus, and that it's important that normally our chapters are adopted by consensus rather than a vote. In our organization, one country is a vote, but we prefer to have the chapters adopted by consensus, because that also means that everybody is happy, even there's some members that have a high level of welfare, like it could be the European Union with all the battery of the regulation, compared with other countries that they are just starting or they don't have any regulation at all. But the idea is that at least we can propose something to start developing a regulatory framework, even if it's sees as a lower level or a basic level.
Before the next question, I will ask you, Leo, if you can put your microphone a little bit closer, because sometimes we lose you a little bit.
Sorry, I'm using this headset. I don't know. Fine.
Yes, now we can hear you fine. And here there's another question. If you can comment a little bit more about the local role that the WOAH animal welfare focal points have and their relevance in implementing all the WOAH animal welfare strategies.
Well, the focal point is something that was established probably 10 years ago in different areas that WOAH works. For example, welfare is one, but we have focal points for antimicrobial resistance. We have a focal point for disease notification. We have a focal point for aquatic animal health. And the idea of that focal points is to try to replicate some of the activities that we do like global level. I mentioned, for example, if a chapter is submitted for member comments, the focal point is requested to do the same at the national level. That means that they need to build a network of stakeholders that can be support or can give also comments to that chapter, and that is crucial because we can capture the specificities of each country in relation to a specific topic. Then there is a clear terms of reference on the activities of that focal point, which is normally staff of the competent authority, which is the official, veterinary authority, but not necessarily like that. In some countries, even the focal points belongs to an animal protection NGO. It could be part of a university. Like, for example, in Mexico, it's the focal points, it's part of the collaborating center. That is the member and the country to decide, but we expect that they try to collect as much as possible information from the country to also include it in the discussion here at the headquarters when we have this discussion with the specialized commission.
Thank you. The next question is, what is the role of the animal welfare collaborating centers in the development of these guiding principles?
We are trying to involve more and more the collaborating centers and use their expertise in the work of the development of standards, and specifically in the revision of Chapter 7.1. In fact, we did not convene another group, but we request the collaborating centers to try to propose a wording for the revision of the chapter, because we already have a request from a member to include the concept. For example, we are talking about the concept of the 5 domains that wanted to be included in a specific chapter. The Code Commission, the specialized commission, thought that it will be more important to include it into the introductory chapter, that as it's have implication for all the animal welfare chapters in the code. Therefore, we ask request the participation of the collaborating center, because that is the role that I mentioned that they have. It's to support the WOAH work in some specific topics. Then we receive the information from the collaborating center, which they also achieve or they arrived to have an agreement between them and present us a document that is probably the with modifications, the one that is circulating for comments today. Then we are trying to use more and more the collaborating centers, and because of that also we are pushing them to develop, we call it a global network of collaborating center, not necessarily to have this consortium in each region, but try to work in a collaborative way, as not necessarily all the expertise, we can find it in a regional animal welfare collaborating center. For example, if in the Americas there is no one working on dog population management, that can be also covered from the Europe Collaborating Center and so on, and try to cover all the aspects that the code chapters are covering.
Thank you. And we have one final question, and it's about the role that NGOs have had in the last years in the way they are collaborating with WOAH.
Well, we have a long-standing relation with the animal welfare NGOs. We firstly signed a collaboration agreement with the Royal Society for the Protection of Animals, RSPCA, in that time, and then became World Animal Protection. But today we have a signed agreement with the International Coalition for Animal Welfare, which includes a lot of national animal protection organizations. And the idea is try to have one single voice with which we can collaborate. We invite them also to, for example, to propose expert name for the other groups. We invite them to participate in all our activities. That means the forum, the conference, and also they have the right and a voice in commenting the chapters that are under study. They don't have a vote because only member countries have a vote or the possibility to adopt a chapter, but they are quite involved in the process of the development of the standards and in the revision of the current standards.
Well, thank you very much, Leopoldo, for participating today and letting us all know a little bit more about the work and the role of WOAH in implementing all the animal welfare guidelines. So thank you very much, and we hope that you can stay for a little longer in the workshop.